Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. Oh, hi, everybody. It is an absolute delight to have you with me again today. And, you know, I get so excited about my guests. And I know I talk about like how open to serendipity. You never know who you're going to meet and where you're going to meet them. And today's guest is truly, and I have it written down on a piece of paper, and I can't wait to surprise her because there's just certain things that come to me when I meet people and I feel like overwhelmed with just this pure, like you see somebody shining. And so the guest that you're about to have the luxury and privilege of hearing from today, when I met her a year ago and we reconnected just recently, I feel like I have written down on a piece of paper. She's going to giggle. I haven't even told you who she is. She is the epitome of a gorgeous bouquet. And I'll tell you more about that here in just a moment. So I want to I know that it's really important to me to thank all the listeners out there. And I'm still blown away at all the countries around the world, every continent we're in. And just to know that there are stories that are making a difference. And just so that everyone knows, if there was a guest on my show about 3 or 4 months ago who has a very, very rare type of blood cancer that was so rare it took her 8 years of her own effort. And I share that with you, but because of this show, the Celebration of You, there is now a family in Moscow that has been able to get help and for the first time find that this exists and get to the right doctors. So it's those simple stories of other people and what they're doing to create an extraordinary life through adversity, whatever that is. And I just truly believe it makes a difference. So I just want to thank you all, no matter where you are, women, children, men, everybody. I also want to say that if there's stories that you really love and you'd love to hear more, please let me know. Like, tell me what your favorites are and tell me what stories have impacted you. I know that we get some of these messages on the website, and I personally want to hear from you. It means a lot to me to know that we are making a difference in your life, and I'd love to hear your story. So if you have a story and it has come to surface because of this show, and maybe there's something that you're ready to share because you believe and know what I believe, that when we reveal, we heal. So I'm giving you all that challenge. If there's something you are personally ready to talk about, or if you know someone, please reach out, hollydowling.com. That's the website. Let us know on iTunes, but we would love to hear from you. So here we go. I am so excited for this gorgeous bouquet, this human being that walks into a room and she just lights up the room and you just go, who are you? Where do you come from? You just have, you know how you meet those people? You know what I'm talking about, that they just have this essence and this gorgeous spirit about them. So may I introduce to you who I now have called the gorgeous bouquet in my life, the gorgeous Miss Jennifer Dooley. Jennifer, thank you for being here.
Wow. Thank you, Holly. I have to tell you something that's so funny when you said gorgeous bouquet.
What? I knew you were dying. You're like, what is she going to do now?
Well, and this is what's fascinating about you, is you have this way of connecting with people where I go, how did she know that? Like, so I have an affinity for flowers.
You do?
I didn't know if you knew that.
No. What? Are you serious?
Yeah.
No, I did not know this.
Yeah. And my affinity for flowers actually goes back to my time when I was facing a lot of adversity, actually, when I was living in Melbourne. And it goes back to a time where money was tight and things were just so difficult. But I was in Melbourne and I was surrounded. I would go into the stores there and I would find these beautiful flowers everywhere. So they would be these huge roses or sunflowers. And I ended up going every single week to the flower stores and buying flowers and putting them in my apartment at that time, even though probably the money should have been spent for
something else,
food or
yeah,
other more important things. But I actually I sort of developed this huge affinity for flowers at the time because they reminded me that despite whatever's happening in the world, there's always beauty around you. And that has been something I actually am looking at my cell phone case right now, and it's covered in pictures of roses. Oh. And I'm wearing, as I'm talking to you right now, I'm actually wearing leggings that have pictures of roses on them. With my little girl up hoodie. So yeah, again, this is another example of how you have an amazing affinity for kind of reaching and understanding people in ways I'm like, I don't know how you knew that, but.
I love this moment. I am just in awe because no, I didn't know that at all. And yet that is exactly who you are. Oh, I love these moments, Jen. When this stuff happens, it just gets me going. And I think it's all about helping people, the journey for me, which, you and I have talked quite a bit. It's just been, pausing in life to stop doing so much and start being. And it sounds so simple, and yet it's been such a journey. And the more I'm able to do that, the more these kind of moments happen, and just allowing the spiritual essence, of who we are to be full and flourish. And you literally walk in a room and you just light it up. And I mean, I know everybody's going to get to see your gorgeous picture when they see, when we send out the artwork, but this is so fascinating. So I would like to, we have so many things I want to talk about today, but what's interesting is and just to give people some background, we met a year ago and she just kind of dangled the carrot. She's in her girl up hoodie, her sweatshirt. We met a year ago in DC at the Leadership and Partner Collective. So that's where they bring in all the people around the world that are partners for Girl Up and really being instrumental. And you've been an amazing ambassador and partner for Girl Up. And then this year, we were at the breakfast at the kickoff with the leaders and partners. And Jen, you made my day. I don't even know if you realize what you did. We're all sitting at our little tables, right? Getting our breakfast and getting ready to meet all the other people that are in, right? All the different sponsors and partners. And you walked over and you were like, hi. And I go, hi. And we're like looking at each other and you were like, remember we met? I'm like, oh yes. And then you paused to tell me the impact that this show has made on your life. Do you remember that moment? It got me emotional.
Oh yeah. Well, and I was also emotional because I think of the first year I went to Girl Up conference and really kind of walking in there and not knowing a single soul and being surrounded by all these incredible, talented women. And so returning my second year and seeing you, and it was like a familiar face, but also more than anything, I felt like about a year ago when I was first involved was really when I was picking up the pieces and really trusting in my heart to build my business. And when I returned from the United Nations Foundation conference and I came back to my home in Calgary, I sat down and I thought, I really want to keep this energy and this sort of vibe of women's empowerment and talking about compassion and caring and living your life with your purpose. And so I started to listen to your podcasts, and I would wake up every morning and I would listen to your podcasts. And the one that really inspired me was the one that you did with Monique Coleman. And I was even more excited to see her again there at the second year and to meet her and just to hear the stories that you're helping all these incredible women and men tell about how they're living with compassion and they're focusing on social issues and initiatives, and they're taking a step outside of themselves and their own egos and kind of giving back to the world. So you actually made my morning when I saw you there, because I thought, oh, this is exciting.
Well, and you just, when you have a mission on your heart, just like you are, and I can't wait for everybody to hear your big mission because I want to know more about this. But it's like, like I say to people, there is no revenue in this show, right? If anything, it just costs me money, but it's my mission on my heart. Like, how can it's a disservice to not follow your highest calling and what we've been put here to do. So the cool thing that happened after you did that, it made me really emotional because I was like, you're just amazing. And thank you. I was like, I need to know all about you. And then I was like, okay, how soon can I interview you? Because you have all kinds of amazing stories, but the world needs to hear from Jennifer. And so today marks that day that we're finally getting this amazing time. And then I come to find out this journey. So by the way, everybody, this woman on the other end of the phone right now with me, Jennifer, she has her PhD. She's off the charts brilliant. How often do you get to meet people that have high IQ and then off the chart EQ? So probably why you're the gorgeous bouquet in my eyes. And yet you've had all kinds of, shall we say, moments in your life that most people would look at as setbacks. I don't even know where to begin. Why don't you take us back to what was probably the most pivotal moment for you that you believe has had the biggest impact? I don't know if it has to do with what you went through with your family, maybe as a younger woman, but take me through the journey of your growing up.
Yeah, so I think probably, and I was thinking a lot about this actually this morning, just before kind of talking to you, and really thinking about my journey. And what's been really fascinating is I almost think I think my pivotal moment was, it's definitely been when I lived in Melbourne, but there was some things that sort of were leading up to that. And I want to call it the moment where you try to live your authentic self, and the moment where you do what you think you should do to sort of please others. That's been sort of, I think, my biggest lesson actually in my 20s and in my 30s now. And it was, as a child, I was very creative. I loved to paint and write. And I also had a fascination with people. So I wanted to find out what, made them tick, what made them sad, what made them happy. I could feel a lot of emotions. I was very empathetic. And when I ended up going to university, and I loved university, it was like suddenly surrounded by textbooks where I could read about psychology and people, and I could sort of try to dissect that. I became passionate about, I had this creative side of myself where I wanted to do things with visuals and creativity, but I also wanted to help people and understand people. So it led me into advertising. And at the time when I started working in advertising, I was in a great company and it was a great experience, but I just couldn't get passionate about the work we were doing. We were selling soap and things like that.
Is that why you said I just couldn't get excited about selling soap?
Yeah, yes. I just couldn't.
I love that.
I actually did have a moment though where I got excited, and it was because one of the clients I was working with, they held a program where they brought together young kids and they encouraged them to play in a community to encourage physical activity and healthy eating. And it was sponsored by actually one of our clients who was a producer of laundry detergent. But I suddenly had this like aha moment where I said, I want to do advertising for social good. And I had no idea how to do that. There was no program that existed. And I ended up finding a program and moved to the UK to live in Scotland to study that. And that's sort of how my path grew to social change and social causes. And I'm going to get back to answering your question, but it feels like it's part of almost this bigger story. And so as I started to study that, I would go sort of back to my hometown in Calgary in Alberta in Canada, and I would tell people what I was doing, and they would look at me and go, why are you doing that? And I said, I really want to help people. And they would say, well, how are you going to make any money at that? Like, it wasn't, you just would. And
that's
really
volunteer work. They're looking at that like, what are you doing? That's volunteer stuff, right?
Exactly. And it's what really affected my self-esteem. And I think it's actually what really led to some of the difficulties I had in Melbourne, which is something that has been a huge gift in the end. So I ended up going to after I had finished my PhD, and my family, we had been through some situations there was a big flood, and I was exhausted. I had launched my consulting business. I was trying to do work in social causes and social issues. Plus I was doing my PhD, living between Sydney and Calgary, trying to help my family through a difficult time. And I finally went, I can't do this. I'm going to try to get a real job. Let's just set my dreams aside for a minute and we'll try to get a real job. And that was when I just packed up everything. I put things in storage and I took off and I went to Melbourne. And that was my pivotal moment was, I tried to sort of put myself in a box that I thought everyone would sort of accept and sort of, it was the good thing to do. It was the right sort of path to do because I'd been having all these messages. And I had a lot of good messages as well. And I landed in a job which was just completely opposite of who I was. It wasn't that it was a bad job in any way, but the way that I like to work, collaboration, community, working together, insight, ideas, that sort of thing. It wasn't that way. And it was also in a new culture where the way men and women were treated was very different. And the way people who were in their, early 30s were treated as well was very different. And I was left with this moment where I went, okay, I'm living to survive, and I'm just barely doing that. I'm not happy. I'm going home completely depressed every day. I'm having like nightmares. I'm having difficulty communicating in this environment, and I need to make a decision. Meanwhile, I had taken out money to go over there. There's already difficult things my family was going through, so I didn't want to burden them with it.
And just to pause, I think this is important, is that you had helped your family literally shoveling mud from a devastating flood that just destroyed your home.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So that's not, when you say helping your family, I mean, you were literally shoveling and literally in their physical labor of helping your family survive and just, right? So it's just, I want people to know that, right? This is not just, we were going through some issues. This was some serious family stuff of, can we survive this as a family, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I would say it was the year that was supposed to be celebrating my PhD. And it's interesting how you get brought together in different ways. My home was evacuated, so I wasn't able to actually be in my home because it was actually close to the river where there was a flood here in Calgary. My parents' home was also on the river. And that's how we spent. They were out of their home. I think it was for 3 months or longer. So it was a pretty devastating experience, but I mean, I think it also brought us together. So, and there's been so much of that happening, all over the world, things like that. So yeah, I had that moment where I went, this isn't the right situation for me at this job in Melbourne. And what do I really want to do? I really want to build this business, but and kind of going enough doubt. You've been doubting yourself. You've been questioning if you're going to make money at this, if you can survive, and I had a friend that I talked to at the time who actually said, sometimes you just have to jump when there's no safety net.
I love that.
Yeah. And it was absolutely frightening to walk away in a foreign country. I had lived in Sydney, but I had just moved to Melbourne. So I knew very few people, and just walk away from a job that wasn't right and trust your instinct. And I can say when I decided to leave the job, I just felt this incredible weight lifted off my shoulder. Mm-hmm. And then an interesting series of events happened. So I ended up meeting up with a client who they were looking for some help on a project to prevent violence against women in Australia. And before I knew it, I had a new client. And for the next 6 months, I spent interviewing incredible people. One of the key stakeholders at Australia Football League, for example, talking about how they're bringing diversity and inclusion into their sports programs. Ooh. And it was just groundbreaking programs and initiatives and people. And I'll be honest, it wasn't a lot of money, the contract, but I ended up finding and meeting a lot of fascinating people who were actually artists in Melbourne. One of them is a good colleague of mine named Dan Parsons. And it was men and women who were authentically trusting who they were and being who they were. And I started working with them as a photographer. So that's how I made my money. I had this contract in violence against women. And then I was taking these, photos for album covers and things like that with people like Dan Parsons. And it's only now that I look back and I realize I was surrounding myself with people who were not afraid to be themselves, and they were growing and giving back to their communities in that way. And I survived the 6 months. I was actually thriving. I was probably quite broke still, but
but a whole different world of mentality when you're doing something that you're passionate about, right? Like,
Exactly.
and that's when you were buying flowers. And so what if you didn't eat that night, but you had flowers?
Or if I ate another bowl of Kraft dinner, right?
Exactly. But isn't it amazing how you could experience that yourself, like the difference in just everything, psychologically, physically, right? Spiritually, every aspect of how different you were feeling by making decisions to truly follow your highest calling.
Yeah. Yeah. It was wonderful. It was really, really an incredible time. And I call it the best year and the worst year of my life because, everything has a gift, right? So initially I thought this is like the worst year of my life. And then once you just trust and you follow your heart, it turns out to be the best year. So
it does. And I have to say, you will love this. I have 3 boys and they're all grown and gone doing their thing, but living life. Some days are good days, some days aren't. And I was talking to one of my sons the other day and he's like, boy, Mom, I just feel like when everything's finally going great, right? And he's going after, he's living his passion and doing it all. He goes, then all of a sudden I hit ground zero again. He goes, because, he's going on tour with artists, the tour cancels, right? Like, so all of this. And I said to him, I'll never forget this. It reminded me of what you just said, is that I said, my love, just remember in life, every challenge is really a gift that's an opportunity. It's just what you're willing to do with it. And the way you just said that year was the best and the worst. It was the worst that turned into the best because of who you became.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I'll have to start using that. That's how I'm going to start talking about it.
Well, it is.
I'm talking to you.
Well, look at us. This is okay. So, but now I'm so intrigued because, and I told you, I don't want to know too much about this till we do the interview. You are passionate about women against violence, and really this has become a big part of your platform. And I know that's all part of the social change, but can you tell us take us into the nitty gritty of that? What does that look like? What are you doing? Maybe even tell us some stats. And what's your passion behind it? What's your big end goal of what you'd like to create for us?
So, and a lot of the stats are quite similar. So the ones that I came across in Australia, I mean, they're quite similar. I'd have to look at the stats in North America. One of the really positive aspects about this, of the many amazing things that has happened, is I'm actually right now looking at a new project in Canada around preventing violence against women. So when I was in Australia and I started working on the project, I was completely shocked because I found out that and I find Australia is very similar to a place like Canada as well. It felt like it was the tropical North America in a way. You meet great people. It's a beautiful environment. There's lots of working men and women, but I found out that there's one woman that's being killed a week by a partner or a former partner. Ooh. So yeah, it's completely unnerving. It just completely shocks me that something like that is happening. And in Australia, 1 in 3 women have experienced physical violence since the age of 18, since the age of 15. So, and 1 in 5 Australia women have experienced sexual violence. So it has been something that has really, it's made me very passionate and really wanting me to move things forward. I've been looking a lot into things like violence prevention campaigns, dealing with things like sexual violence on campus. And yeah, it's been more of the stories, I think, that have really opened my eyes. And then looking at how can I take my passion, which is social marketing for social causes, and try to change the story around this. So is it belief systems? Is it a matter of leadership skills? What is it? And it's ultimately, I think, what brought me to the Girl Up program. I did have another sort of slight setback, actually, is that when I first came back to Canada, I ended up being accepted to do a Banting postdoctoral fellowship. And the topic area was actually preventing sexual violence on campus. I was very motivated from the Girl Up program when I had met people like Liz Plank, and she was covering stories like the Brock Turner Stanford crisis, and just thinking about like my own personal experiences and things that I had gone through, like when I was in Australia, just the way that in the workplace that I was sometimes treated by one man in particular that was just an inappropriate way to treat a colleague. And I even remember I had a career coach for a little while, and he was an older man. And I remember, and I'll go on to kind of give you a little bit of my view, because I actually don't think it's a gender thing. I don't think it's a male versus female thing.
I agree.
And one of my huge mentors is John Gerzema, who talks about this, that it's not a male versus a female thing. But I remember sitting down and talking to this gentleman about, how to grow my career in Australia. And he said, can I give you some advice? And I said, sure. And he said, next time you go and meet with clients or you try to build your business in Australia, can I suggest you don't wear any makeup, that you put your hair back, and that you try to make yourself look older and less into style and fashion? And I actually didn't even know what to say. It was one of those moments where you think you would just like have something great and witty to say back.
Yeah, really?
And I actually looked at him in like silence and just looked at him and went, did that just happen? And that was my moment where I was like, no, leadership is I see it in a different way. It's not looking and dressing a certain way. It's not being more aggressive in nature. And I feel like that's maybe what drew me to eventually meet people like yourself and people like John and all the amazing people at Girl Up. Yeah.
Golly, I'm just in shock, but do you know how real that still is? I know women that have gone to the extent of cutting their hair, changing their wardrobe to look and fit into the boys' club in the industry they're in. And I feel like we're finally, when I say the glass ceiling in that respect, I feel like we're finally shattering that, because I think, to your point, there's so many issues anymore, and we could spend hours talking about this, that they're not as much gender specific. It's more about, to me, it's about human beings' conscious biases and getting people to take a shift. Just because it was like this 20 years ago doesn't mean that's the same world we live in. And I feel like more than ever, the more we empower, well, this, we talked about this at Girl Up. I'm on a mission to start Boy Up, because we're only doing half the battle by empowering the girls. You can empower them, and I love this, but I raised 3 boys. What are we doing to help the boys feel they're important and that they are valued for who they are, and then they will respect and, totally edify the women in their lives, right? So that's a whole nother subject, but what you just said, I think it's just so interesting, right? Can you just not wear makeup? And so that gorgeous bouquet that I called you, would you just like to be like an already dead flower sitting in a vase by itself? That's what I pictured.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
Right. That's what I was like. How dare you tell this gorgeous human being to say, oh, can we tone it down a bit? But again, these are the moments that have shaped what you're doing with, Jennifer, it's so fun. I know people are going to be listening to this going, she just went from Calgary to Australia, and then she just went to Berlin, and she's going to go here. And you choose to live your life and follow your calling. And there was a story that you were going to tell me, and I want to hear this. You said, because I don't know this, the story behind what really was behind you getting involved in Girl Up, right?
I'm so excited to tell you this story.
Okay, I got to hear this. Okay.
And I can't believe I haven't told it to you until now. So, so when I left Melbourne, so the visa had sort of expired, and I decided I was going back to North America, and the whole experience, I went, okay. I still had this little voice in my head that went, maybe you should still get a real job. And so I have family in New York. So they contacted me and they said, you've been through a lot in Melbourne. Why don't you come, stay with us for 6 months or so and before you go back and settle back in Canada. And who knows, maybe you could find a job here. And I thought, okay, all right, I'll be like a real grown up and try to find a job and, put aside my passions again. I had one of those other kind of moments. And I went to New York and I ended up interviewing with a bunch of people. And one of them was actually John Gerzema, who's on the committee with the United Nations Foundation Girl Up program. And we met a lot, actually. And we were talking about marketing research, because I also have a bit of a background in that. And he had said to me, what was so funny though, is every time we went to meet, we would talk about market research, and then we would change the subject and talk about Girl Up, and he would tell me about Girl Up.
I love this.
So we kept diverting the subject to Girl Up, and things were actually going really well. And I was kind of moving through a number of different interviews, and pretty certain that I was moving to New York. And then we had a family health issue in Canada without any support. And I decided to make the decision to go back and to help out. And that kind of ended the series of interviews and that sort of thing. My focus just changed, and I was feeling pretty emotionally exhausted. I thought, you know what? I'm going back to Canada. I'm going to live in Calgary. I'm going to build my business. I'm going to really believe in myself. It's like the third time I tell myself that. And I ended up going back for just a small visit. And I went back with the purpose of, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to contact any of the people that I was interviewing with. I'm just going to go and catch up with friends. I'm going to go listen to like some great jazz music. I'm going to go, wander through the streets and just look at the art and really enjoy my New York experience. And I went to go meet a friend, and it was in Tribeca. And it was in the middle of the day. I think it was like 1:00 in the afternoon. And I walk into a restaurant in Tribeca. And who's in the restaurant?
No.
Yeah.
I knew you were, I've got goosebumps. Seriously.
Yeah. So I walk in and John's there.
Of course.
Yeah. And I was like, what is going on? So I walked up to him and, said, of all places in New York City, one of the biggest cities in the world, and during, 1 hour of my time, I've decided to go meet a friend for lunch, and he's there. And he said to me, I can't actually make it to the Girl Up conference and summit this year. Would you be interested in going in my place?
Oh.
And I was like, this is completely surreal.
Wow.
So that's actually how I got involved in Girl Up.
Oh, Jen, I am sitting here with goosebumps all over me. This is what happens to me. And I literally... Again, it's so crazy, but this is when you're open to what's about to happen. And right, it seems like just getting to know you even more right now, it's like you're allowing yourself to go through life. Yeah, you keep having those the right shoulder nudges going, well, you should get a job. You should do this. And as I always say, stop shooting on ourselves, SHOULD. But you've continued to, you hear that little nudge, you kind of veer off and go do what you're supposed to. But then before you know it, you're back to going where your soul needs you. And when you do, all these serendipitous moments happen for you like that. Right? Mm-hmm. And if that's something people could take away that are listening to this, and it really gets me to the culmination of how I love to wrap up the show. And you probably already know because you've listened to so many of these, but I think it'll be quite fascinating from you to, in your greatest of thoughts and wisdom, if you were to go back to your 21 or 25-year-old self, what advice would you give her knowing what you know now? Based on this amazing life full of experiences that you've had?
My advice would be to believe in yourself and to trust your instincts. And also, there's like an old saying, if you have people that are, like the naysayers, or they're telling you not to do something, or you can't do something, or that's not possible. I mean, I heard it at the conference at the Girl Up Summit this year. Dr. Ansari said this. She said, like, she wanted to be the first female civilian astronaut. Mm-hmm. And she told all these people around her, and they said, no, you're never going to do that. And then she showed the video to the whole conference of her going to the moon as the first female civilian astronaut. So I think it would have saved me a lot of heartache, difficulty, not that I would take back the difficulty, if I had really just said, like, I believe in myself. And even if, there's not a lot of people that do work in marketing for social issues or social causes, I can still thrive. You can still do things that are non-traditional fields. And you can carve out your own life if you listen to your heart and you believe in yourself. And if you think the people that are questioning you, they're actually there to help you to believe in yourself even more and to really kind of push through and, not to be angry at them. They're always trying to help you. I have to say, like, all the people that have, given me that advice, they've always been trying to help me, and they've helped me to believe in myself even more. And then I think as well to find mentors and people that can help you along the way, that actually do believe in you, because those are the ones more than anything else that really help you move into the right path in life. That we're all still discovering. I feel like there's still so many new areas that I'm working on and discovering right now, but yeah, that would be my piece of advice.
I love that. And as I wrap this up, I would love to know, tell everybody what's next for you. What's on the horizon? What can we do to support you? And how can people reach out to you if they want to connect with you, my friend?
Okay, wonderful. Well, my website is dooleysocialchange.ca. So it's www.dooley, socialchange.ca. My email is jennifer@dooleysocialchange.ca. So that's how you can contact me. My social media links are on there. And where am I going right now? I'm looking at a couple of different things. So my business is growing. I have an amazing group of team members I'm working with. My clients are growing. So right now we're focusing on projects in the arts, sustainable development, health and wellness, and also now, again, some more work around women's empowerment and preventing violence against women and young girls' empowerment. So my big idea that I shared with you kind of before we began this interview today is that I'm really passionate about leadership, and I'm very passionate about empowering other people. So I'm looking at some potential ideas to start workshops or conferences in North America where we can bring together female leaders and have the kind of conversations that you and I just had. I think just the conversations are important to kind of learn and grow and to get things off of our chests. So I don't know what it's going to look like yet. I don't know who's going to be a part of it with me. I've met up with quite a few different colleagues. I know you'll be a part of it if it kind of, or when it comes to fruition, not if.
Right.
When.
Well done, you. It's exactly right. It's what we say. It's when it happens, not if. Totally.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about kind of working through those ideas and also looking at an opportunity to do some training in Berlin potentially next summer. So those are my big ideas. Continue to grow my consulting business, work with incredible people on interesting projects, I really want to focus on innovation. Like, there's a lot of innovative things happening in the type of world we live in now, and empower women and men to have a different, I want to use John Gersama's Athena doctrine, which is basically that he says, like, through his research with, I think it is, I'm trying to remember the exact number of people that he spoke to, but it was quite a large number of people from around the world. I think it was like 16 different countries or something like that. Don't quote me on it, but he had looked at leadership traits, and he had basically sort of found out from over, 30,000 people that he had spoke to that strong leaders are actually being seen as collaborative and empathetic and sharing their feelings openly and having sort of honesty and collaboration. They have other characteristics like decisiveness and things like that. And that's really what I want to focus on in kind of building leadership and bringing together these groups and these, whether it's conferences or meetings or whatnot. So I guess we'll have to see where it is at.
I know. We'll have to see. And I told you, I have been pulling at me. A lot of people asking, when am I coming back up to Canada? And so when you and I were talking, I'm like, well, there you go. You're like, I'm thinking I want to do this. And I'm like, well, absolutely, consider it done. I will be there to serve, support, and in any way. And I think that we just need to keep, it's interesting because a lot of the work I do globally is with leaders. And I think everything you just said about what John extracted from all the research he did is right on point. And I think more than ever, that's what we're seeing globally as the buzz, because, at the end of the day, we're all leaders. You don't need a title. It's how are we showing up every day in our personal life and our professional life. And so again, that's another topic. But you, my love, I thought of two things that before, as we say goodbye to everybody. So now everybody knows how to get a hold of you. They can go to your website and now see the gorgeous bouquet that I've been calling you. I don't know if you heard this episode, but I interviewed, one of the most riveting interviews. It was at she launched the end of December. Charlene, she's out of Canada. I actually think she might be out of Calgary. She is the woman that I interviewed her around the awareness and prevention of internet pornography and child trafficking.
Okay, I'll have to go listen to that after. You
do. You need to listen to it. Yeah. She's got a book. Her story is riveting, and I don't even want to tell you. You just go listen to it, but I'd like to make an introduction of the two of you. So,
Holly.
Yeah, you two definitely need to meet, and she's just amazing and taking her passion that hit home to bring awareness and prevention and going all over the world. You two absolutely need. So I will make that introduction. And I just want to thank you for sharing your beautiful spirit, your brilliance, your heart, and just knowing you and having you in my life has been a gift. And I'm only going to say selfishly, I wish you were coming to my elite retreat. There's amazing women from around the world. It's going to be extraordinary. And I know you can't be with us, but your spirit will be with us, my friend. Okay.
Yes. And I promise I will come to it actually at some point. That's another thing is I've been looking at all these incredible retreats that you do. And I'm thinking, okay, so maybe I should also add that to my list of things to do when I'm thinking Berlin. Also visit Holly.
There you go. Scottsdale. It's Berlin and then Scottsdale, Arizona. How's that for two?
I can wear my pink dress in Scottsdale, Arizona.
I love it. And I need to keep you posted. And to everybody listening, it's looking very probable that I will be over in Australia speaking the beginning of 2018, probably in February. So, and I'm thinking of hosting a couple different things, but that's still in the works. So just dangling the carrot. So you and I will probably need to connect over that too. Okay.
I would love to. Yeah. Let me know if you need any advice or help on that.
I would love that. Well, I just love having you in my life, and thank you for being the gift that you are to everyone, and stay in touch. All right. Keep us all posted.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me today, Holly.
You're welcome, my friend. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. Bye. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.